Okay, so I just changed the audio mode. Can you guys hear me now?
I know that people can hear in my office.
Okay.
Okay, great. It seems
now, were you
like
guys
that
able
worked.
to hear us earlier?
Thanks, Mike. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of yeses, Heather,
Okay.
from the people that had problems before.
And if it's still going in the background, just hang up the phone and call again. Sorry, Tim, we usually don't have this problem.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. So we've actually covered a fair amount, but mostly I just want to say thank you to all you who have answered the survey. And, you know, I think I can offer some ideas for how to help visitors make a connection with one of your exhibits, and how it's you know, incredibly important for people to make a personal connection, and it's something that they might remember years later. And additionally, all those people who are teachers or coaches or parents or just big kids themselves, you are prepared to make games. So if we have no other questions about the sound, maybe we can hop right into the game or the presentation.
Yep, Tim, I think it's good. Sorry about that little snafu earlier.
Yeah, no worries. So again, I'm Tim Cook. My company, TrekSolver, puts together a mobile game, but mostly I just want to provide an interactive experience at museums and work technology where appropriate into all the great things you already do at your museum. So first, what is a game? You know, if you search on the internet, you'll find a number of descriptions, a number of different takes on what are all the things necessary to have a game. But I like the very simple, kind of open definition, which is structured playing. It's right off Wikipedia as well, but I couldn't have put it in any simpler. It is a pretty wide open area, and let's look a little bit further toward what you might imagine a game to be. Well, something that has a goal, sure. Rules, limitations, absolutely. We can't play any game, Monopoly or a sport, soccer, without rules. Challenge. There needs to be some sort of a challenge. It can be opponents. It can be, you know, just solving a puzzle. Additionally, competition. Is that an aspect? Well, it can be, but it's not fully necessary. And interaction, absolutely. So let's take a look at what these really mean. A goal. Well, there are actually two goals. What is the goal of the player of a game? Well, that's the visitor to your museum. It might not be exactly what you view as the objective. You know, what are your learning objectives? What do you want people to get out of an exhibit? Sometimes people are just happy to see something neat, to, you know, touch buttons in an interactive exhibit. But you really need to draw them into what your goal for them is. Rules. Well, the more rules you have, the more complicated things are. Think helpful instructions instead. We're looking to lead people to what they need to discover, lead people to some sort of success along the way. So if you can imagine, these instructions need to be easy. So let's take a look at this. Would you rather play this game, which some of you might recognize as the instructions printed on the outside of a Pac-Man arcade machine when you were kids? Well, if you're my age, you would. Very simple, straightforward. That's about all you needed to jump right into the game, other than maybe some other kids there who, of course, are going to give you their opinions. How about this next one? This is a fantastic activity, but is it as accessible? I put the signs that are required here, and also, if you see at the bottom, just try it. They have only 3 steps, but there's a bunch of background that goes into it. So this station really could have been more than one station put together. The first step, learning how to use gears. The next step, learning how to use pulleys. Still, it was a phenomenal hands-on activity, but it was one of the least used activities within the space. Certainly that depends upon the age group of kids currently in the exhibit. But additionally, it was one that's just not as immediately welcoming. I know how to do it. I know how to get started. So that's just something to keep in mind, including when you put together a game, a mobile game as well. So now then, further on the components. Challenge. Well, how much is enough? Well, there needs to be some sort of sense of accomplishment. Who likes to play a game partway through and not be able to finish? Whether it's a puzzle, a crossword puzzle you can't finish, it's just not satisfying. Consider some optional help or hints along the way. It's not cheating. It's enabling people to get to the next step and learn everything you have set up for them. And be sure to align it with the goals. Remember the learning objectives? Are you looking at younger kids who are trying to see a few artifacts that connect to some history lessons they've done? Or are you looking at older students, maybe in middle school, in high school even, who you want them to really experience what you have, interpret what you have, spend a lot of time really digging into what it means or what things mean to them. Now then, competition. Should there be winning or losing? Well, I don't know about the losing, but occasionally there's circumstances where you might want scores, points. People use that. That's an incentive. It could also be different groups in a field trip, for instance. Each one of them needs to contribute, do the best job possible. Now, that doesn't mean finding the most things at your museum, because then they're running around just finding things to check off the list. But you can certainly engineer an activity or game such that each person participates. Make certain that each person has a role in the outcome. And I think that's important. Interaction. Okay, this is the big one. Without interaction, what is the best outcome? It's entertainment. A movie, for instance, a feature film, very entertaining. Interactive, no. If you talk to the screen, people will shush you, in fact. What you actually want is interaction with your exhibits. There are a lot of orientation films that are people's first step in the museum, and they're phenomenal. And many of them are actually entertaining. And it's even better if they're led directly out of the theater right into the first of the exhibits, and it follows a sensible path, and they can see the story that was just played out in the movie. Still, people, the individual visitors aren't interacting. They're not internalizing some of this. So the last part is there's a requirement that at least the players have to perceive that what they're doing, their actions, their choices matter. Now, take a treasure hunt, for instance. If you help them all along the way, eventually they get to the end, and it's very satisfying. But they think that they have to continue along the way. They can't want to stop in the middle. So players must want to play. You need some sort of incentive. Yes, it could be bragging rights that they finished it. This especially comes into play if there's a social aspect, posting the results to social media, for instance. But this is also where you need to draw players in, and that can take the form of letting them know there's a game, encouraging them to play a game, or just making the game compelling all along the way. All right, so how do I build one? First off, am I up to make a game? Yes, absolutely. You'll see later that you don't need to be the most creative to build a game. You can borrow ideas, and you will see that you don't necessarily need to do it all yourself. So we'll guide you through that. So should I use technology? Well, let's take a look at your goals first. Technology isn't necessarily the complete solution, but there's definitely a use for technology. And can I deal with failure? That doesn't mean failure of players. That means the sense of failure we'll have when we design our first game set it up and it doesn't turn out the way we expect. But that's okay. That's to be expected. There's a feedback loop, and you'll continue to improve and learn. And I put failure in quotes because I don't believe it's failure at all. So what are your goals? What do you want visitors to do? Well, we addressed that in the survey up front. There are a variety of interests, the most common one being making a connection or spending longer at an exhibit. So let's look at all these different options. Well, get visitors to see more exhibits. What kind of game does this suggest? Well, perhaps it suggests a scavenger hunt, which, by the way, is a game. And even though I point out here that sometimes it ends up being I Spy with people running around, it's still a game, and that's the perfect place to start. So what I have here is an example of a checklist. Students or just visitors can run around, walk around, look for these individual objects within the rooms, on the paintings, on the walls, and I've blacked out the location of this because honestly, I had a phenomenal time at this museum, and they did so many things that were fantastic. But nonetheless, I did see a very harried volunteer in the corner, worried about the kids touching the paintings, and believe me, she had to be there. So now then, let's see, how can we extend a scavenger hunt? Let's go back to our learning outcomes. Just checking something off the list, yes, people make a little connection, but we could give it greater meaning. Even for those who are younger and may not read, there might be some multimedia ways to make the connection for them, or to give them just that little tidbit that they can take away. Get visitors to spend longer at each exhibit. Now, this is one that more of you were interested in, and this suggests perhaps a treasure hunt, something that you're actually going to have to look deeper for the answers. That might mean more reading of signs, but not necessarily. It might require completing an activity at certain exhibits, and I think this is key. A game isn't necessarily something that you play, independently of all the activities you have at your museum. It's actually something, an opportunity really, to bring people to it, to each of the hands-on stations, and to make the connection from one hands-on station to the next. What else can you do to get people to spend longer? Well, maybe you want to get them to think on their own. This, of course, is for a bit older of groups or participants, but here you can ask leading questions. Frequently people walk into a museum, and why did they not spend very long looking at a painting, for instance, or one particular exhibit? Well, they don't know how to interpret it. If it's a family, the parents might not actually know how to present it to their children. You sometimes just need to hold people's hands just a little bit to bring them along. And also, this sort of format makes it easier to apply all sorts of neat group dynamics. Imagine a school group coming through and middle schoolers, and you actually want them to relate it back to their studies, or you want each person in the group to offer up a suggestion or contribute to the conversation. You can manufacture that by requiring it in a game. And believe me, people do what they're required to in a game. Next one. This is an extension of getting people to spend a little bit longer. Getting them to visit all the exhibits needed to tell the story. Just think about all the time that was spent planning out each exhibit in an overall exhibition, telling a story. It could be chronological, or it could be arranged in some other manner altogether. But you took time. A lot of people probably took time preparing this. And you can do this with the game as well. The game here needs to be perfectly aligned with this natural story. Well, I say perfectly. It doesn't need to be perfectly, but it needs to follow with it. It needs to be designed such that people don't lose their way in the middle of the activity and not finish it. The good news is ways that you might draw people in to the story are the use of images. You probably already have custom images created for your signage. That gives people a visual cue or a clue that they are on the right path. And maybe you need specific cues along the way to match the signage. You know, it could just be a magnifying glass. This is the next stop. It could be numbered. There could be just signs like triangle. Okay, we know we're at the right stop. And it's very important so people continue the activity and stop at all of your exhibits and get that complete story. But regardless, this version requires a bit more creative work to set it up. Lastly, get them to make a connection with even just one exhibit. I was pleased to see that almost 60% of you chose us. I think this is fantastic. It aligns with a lot of questions that other people raise, such as, you know, how do I do things on a budget? How do I do things without technical skills? This is the activity for you. In this picture, you'll notice, yes, it's a very nice, probably expensive table, but you don't need the fancy table. You need what's on it, and you need the right signs and the right motivation. People will do the activity. Now then, you want them to extend your reach. You need to prompt them to share it with other people who are not coming into your museum yet. Hopefully they will down the road. So now then, the next stop is, what's the process? But here's a good time to ask for a little bit further input from you. I hope you'll accommodate me. Thank you.
So if you guys just want to take a minute to answer the poll question there. And if you are having any audio sound, I would suggest calling in the numbers that were emailed to you. That might help. For some reason, we are having some spotty audio problems.
And I just want to say again, because a lot of you were not able to hear in the very beginning, that Tim and TrekSolver have graciously offered to create a game for us to put into our mobile app at conference this year. So we hope you'll all check that out.
Yeah, again, we're looking forward to it ourselves. So I believe on these you can click as many choices as you want as well.
That is correct. Yes, that's how I set it up.
So additionally, I have one question there. Who do you hope to engage with the game? If I've overlooked a group or a specific need and you check off other, feel free to type what other is as a comment.
Okay, it looks like we have a good group there. So I'm going to end the voting now. And share the results.
Excellent. So what age range do you hope to engage with the game? I think the age group of 8 to 11, I'm happy to see that that's the largest group there. And I think that's the prime opportunity where students can read some written materials, although you still want to be certain that you write things at their level. But I think that's where things really kind of open up for guided activities or activities that they can follow along with and self-guide. Individuals, families, school groups, each of these presents a different set of, well, constraints, but also opportunities. So, for instance, for individuals, when designing a game that will be played by individual participants, it's really necessary to draw people in. That's just one thing you'll need to consider up front. People don't like to go into things all alone, and people may not finish games if they experience difficulty and don't have a little bit of help or support. Families, again, I'm very happy to see this large number as the target because, again, I would like to help those parents and caregivers who come in and just need that extra little bit of help to help their group, their children, process the museum. And lastly, what do people have? Well, over 50% of you have paper activities, which, as I said, is the very basis of a game. And sometimes this is all you need to do. Just update this. I think the worst presentation of this is an over-photocopied sheet of paper. If you put a little bit of effort into the presentation of it, actually that goes a long way. Even folding the paper neatly and making it look like a booklet. Not expensive, but nonetheless, it's a better presentation. And I think we can just take that to the next step. Updated graphics, and this is the perfect spot for mobile technologies. Apply the mobile technology on a platform you recognize and understand. Finding things in your museum, making connections. Hands-on activities, again, let's get them to stop at every single one of them. Mobile multimedia tour. So 16% of you have this, and the thing I will state is this can coexist with a mobile game. The demographic that looks at a multimedia tour is completely different from those who play the game. And secondly, some of the content that's in a multimedia tour, maybe you want to shift that to the pre-visit or the post-visit to the museum. So there are certainly ways that a game can be integrated into that. And if we jump right in to the process. So we've discussed the goals and objectives. I think you know those straight away. But now the next step in this process, or any process really, or project, assess your resources. What do you have to bring to the table? What do you have to work with? Research. This doesn't need to be too difficult. I'm going to show you the ways to make it easy because, as I said, you can borrow ideas. You can take an idea that works well in a museum in San Diego, apply it to one in Boston, no problem. The likelihood of people thinking it's exactly the same experience, even if you had the same graphics, is pretty low. They're not going to visit both places, but you're still going to have your unique twist on things. Every museum is unique. Now this next part is what I call the learning loop. So you're going to have to test out your ideas. You're going to learn things. You're going to learn a lot of things. And then you're going to modify what you did. And it doesn't have to take forever. You can do these quickly, but you're going to do them again and again and again. And now I can't draw very well with this mouse. But you get the point. You're going to repeat this. And the other thing is change is good. So you're going to learn things in this process that are going to lay the groundwork for doing your next game. Maybe the game or activity that appeals to a different age group. It's very important to understand how all these things are connected, and you can continue using some of the same material. So, resources. We've already covered your objectives. Now the resources. Some of these are straight out of the questions people provided to me ahead of time. Money. Remember, time is money too. I could quote to you from a variety of studies or surveys what it costs to make mobile apps. Those aren't necessarily relevant. The amount of time you would spend doing anything in-house on the technology side is going to be just as expensive as your development costs. You're going to look for a platform, or you're going to look at something just ready to go, very easy, that requires no technical expertise, which brings us to technical expertise. People say, well, we have a small IT staff, or I don't know about technology. Well, let's figure out where technology fits in for you. you have the creative expertise, you have the stories, you have the objects which people cannot see sitting in their living room. You want them to experience it before they visit, after they visit, yes, but also while they're there. And there is a technical solution for you, so you don't need to worry about that. No programming should be involved. Next is staff and time. Well, you ask for what you need. And by this, I mean you may very well not have time, or you just may need willing volunteers from your existing staff. But if you don't have time, let's ask people. Let's find people who are interested in helping you out. And one of those is community groups, but we'll go into that a little bit further later. The next stop is research. Borrowing ideas and Google search. I know that oversimplifies it, but the fact of the matter is the Google search helps people, has helped me many a time as a DIN leader, put something together at the last minute even. So I always called it my DIN leader's best friend, because no matter what it is you want to do, someone has probably already done it. No matter what goal you have in mind, someone else has the same goal. Now, a warning. When you do these Google searches, you're going to search for games, perhaps. Unfortunately, these days, games means video games. And that's completely different from what I do. But also, I think it's different from what you're looking for. You're not necessarily looking for a flashy game. You're looking for something engaging that gets people to explore what you have to offer and learn. Learn the backstory, learn the concept. That's what you're looking for. So you might do better just to look for activities. Find activities that people have already done. And now this last one, I'm not suggesting you start at Pinterest, but I think Pinterest sort of underscores how people solve problems these days and how they share their solutions. So just about any of these activities, whether it's a craft, an activity, a game, you'll find someone else who's done it and put up very creative and appealing pictures of it. So if you want help on that, you can, I don't know, give us a buzz. We have some further suggestions, but believe me, this will go a long way. And borrow those ideas and find the one that you're ready to try out. So that brings us to the test subjects. Well, who can you use? There are your own kids, perhaps, until, of course, they're tired of it. Maybe they've been to your museum too many times already. How about family day at the museum? No, not quite. Too many people all at once, you won't really be able to get a lot of information out of it. Well, you get a lot of information, but maybe not quite useful information. So how about this one again? Local scouting groups. Look for groups of a small number of kids who will come in, or participants, it may not be kids, who will come in and do the activity, try it out. I'm sure that whatever your museum has to offer, it aligns with one of the badges or pins or rank requirements for Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. Definitely just find your local chapter, troop, service unit, and spread the word. All right, now we get to that repeated loop, the learning process. I'm just going to bring you through an example. And this is an actual example we did recently. And we learned things. Some was a bit predictable to us, and others, well, it's always something new. So the setting was an art gallery. There were classes given after school for 2 age groups. So we had the kindergarten through 2nd graders group or class and the 3rd through 5th graders class. 2 different groups. You approach them a little bit different in terms of the teaching styles, but they were both studying lines. That's where they were starting. This is an introductory art class. So the instructor had been employing an activity within the gallery. There are about 25 pictures, and photographs, paintings, pen and ink, so 25 artworks on the wall, and she would send them off looking for types of lines. Well, this is back to the scavenger hunt. She'd already defined to them, these are vertical lines, horizontal, diagonal, thin, thick, curly, wavy, zigzag. She'd been through this. Now they needed to see examples. So we adopted this activity and wanted to see how would it work. Well, what did we learn? First of all, people may not use things the way you think. Right here, you see a couple screenshots from the game. The first day of doing this class was kindergarten through second graders. We had purposely arranged the groups such that each group had a second grader, could read the simple words that were used. However, we handed the devices to the younger students so everyone could participate. We also encouraged the second graders to help the younger kids in their group by reading. Well, it just didn't work out that way. They needed a little bit of additional help. So we added this magic button right here. And I'll explain why it's magic in a moment. But this was a voice recording. I personally recorded my own voice reading all of the text. The next day, the kids had more success with it. The day after that, it was the 3rd through 5th graders. They pushed the button too. And they could all read the words. They would even push the button over here. It reads great. Now we will take a closer look. They would push the button for that as well. I asked them afterwards why. And it took a little while for them to articulate it. But what it came to was they were afraid they'd miss something. So just bear this in mind, that buttons are there to be pushed. Maybe some of you are reaching for it right now, but it doesn't play anything in the PowerPoint. But people want to push buttons, and we need to control when they push the buttons. Think back to that science museum where people go in, they push all the buttons, or they have to push the button to see each of the video clips, but they're not really paying attention to the videos. Well, there are times when you actually do want them to push all the buttons, and they will learn something. But just bear in mind that you'll learn things along the way. There's actually more to learn. So people's perceptions may not match reality, and your measurements may not be very accurate. Let me explain. These kind of go together. We had a little survey for the students to do afterwards, very brief, 4 questions. We helped them write their answers the first day. The second day, we adapted to one where they could circle answers. But the main thing we learned was from this one question. What did you learn, or did you learn from this game something about lines that you did not already know? Almost all of them said, no, they didn't really learn anything. Now, the fact of the matter is they'd never been told the meaning of abstract or of still life. Those had not been defined for them until they were defined right in the game. Nonetheless, they thought they knew everything there was to know about lines. After all, the teacher had already told them, this is vertical, this is horizontal, this is diagonal. So no matter what you're asking, they may not be answering the question you think you're asking. And reflective questions, well, those are best left to older students or even adults, ones where they really have to think about, well, what did I learn, or what was the connection? And most importantly, you need to observe. So I never would have known what the reason was that even the older students had pushed the audio button unless I watched. I observed that they were doing this, and I asked the question. So now, how about some tips? Oh, did we mention borrowing? I know we did, but I can't overemphasize that. That's the place to start. And Additionally, always encourage your visitors to share. Now, what I mean by this is share ideas with you, provide you with feedback, but also share your message outside the museum walls. And that is key. How you do it? Well, you get them to do it. You don't do that yourself. You'll see an example. And mix it up. Be sure to do this. The game isn't the end of the whole activity. The game is what you should use to bring people through everything you already have to offer. So let's see, how do we do this? All right, mascots. What's the purpose of this? Draw people into the experience. For all of you who wanted to connect with individuals through a game, well, you need a mascot. They need someone to go along with them. They need to make it inviting. They need someone to set up why are they doing the game. What is the objective? You can have a unique mascot, or you can have one created if you don't have one. Here we have some examples of different poses of a mascot. Believe me, it was not very expensive to get a couple individual drawings of a mascot. If you need references, we can provide them, but it's as simple as looking on elance.com, a place where you can find all sorts of creative individuals, and they can provide you with things to help draw you, the artistic work or what have you, even if you don't have the staff. Nextly, though, where will you spread your message? On the left, we have an example of a fantastic makerspace. I participated in this. We do our own artwork at many different stations, and right there on the wall, display your artwork here. And we have seven drawings up there. I suspect a lot of people took the drawings home with them because they wanted to keep a souvenir. But what if your message says, take a picture of this right now and post it? Let's make a contest of it even. So get people to post it on their Facebook, which you can see on the right. That extends your reach outside the walls of your museum. And yeah, some people do that already, but you really need to encourage them. Give them an incentive. You might even make a game of it. This is your first use of technology with no technological skills whatsoever. Get people to go around taking pictures of things that they connect with, that they think tell a story. Maybe share them outside, or maybe bring them to you. Bring them to the information desk. Bring them to one of your volunteers. You'll find they're happy to show you what they saw. Talk about the stories that they have. And isn't that what you really want? Now, here's another example. This is where someone did provide the opportunity to take a picture at an interesting spot and put it out there on the internet. Now, this is not exactly at a museum, but I think it applies. So in this setting, there was an iPad on the wall in the corner, screen's blank. There were no signs. I, being curious and a big kid, I went over and tapped on it, and I saw the email address, which is listed right there. They encourage you to take a picture of yourself and email it to this address. So that's my son reclining on the throne there. And that's actually the way he looks at home a lot, too. I think he thinks he owns the place. But anyway, that picture was up there for 2 weeks at the very top because no one else publishes those pictures there. No one else posts the pictures. So there were only 12 more pictures over the following 7 months till they seem to have taken the iPad down. They did at one point move the iPad, hoping people would notice it, but they didn't have a sign. If they had a sign, I guarantee you more people would have been posting. And while we were there, just for lunch and a little bit longer, at least 12 people took photos. So I'm sure there were people ready to post. But that's okay. The important thing is if you wanted them to post, you'd have them post to their own Facebook, not to yours. Although if they tag you, that's fantastic. Let them know that you're going to pick the best pictures. Make a real game out of that. You you promise to put up the best selections each week on your Facebook page. That'll give them some incentive. Now then, what makes a good connection? Sometimes you just need to let the visitors decide. No matter what you think is the most important piece in your entire museum, no matter what you know about the history of the subject matter, it matters what connection they make. So right here are two photos from a fantastic museum we went to, the Henry Ford. And what is that connection with my daughter laying in the hot dog sofa, I guess it is? Well, I asked her about this picture just the other day, 2 years after we took it, and she remembered, and I asked her, well, what else do you remember about that day? And she said, the Rosa Parks bus. That was the highlight of her day, but she made that connection. She made the connection with the silly I'm a hot dog picture and Rosa Parks, which she'd studied in school. So again, encourage visitors to share those connections they make. And people will do crazy things. You can get people to do things in a game they wouldn't otherwise. You can get them to answer some survey questions for you too while you're at it. They may not fill out survey cards, but they'll do things in a game. And they'll also push their limits just a little bit. And I think you owe it to them to encourage them to do that. Also these days, you can post videos to Facebook, just short video clips. Many of you may have received a challenge, the ALS challenge. Well, so we all know how to post videos. Here's a perfect example on the right, an inertia trick. And that's exactly the sort of thing that you'd want to post. And by the way, I've used that again at a science night we put on at our school. It was a big hit. Oh, and secondly, melamine, for those of you who know what it is and think of it as indestructible, well, actually it's not, which we found out at science night as well. But another thing I'd like to point out here was they had very nice, simple signs. Again, hugely important for a game as well. So I know a lot of you are waiting for this, the free stuff. Everyone likes it. And many of you came right out and asked for it. So first thing, an audio tour. Well, do you have a smartphone and the number of your webmaster? You actually can put together a very simple audio tour yourself. And you'll be employing the same technique I used within my game. I recorded myself reading the content. You can do exactly the same thing. Put it up on your website, get help putting it there, and then all you need is a link. A link to that file on the website, and anyone can access that audio clip. You could even do it with QR codes. Right there. A QR code is one of those funny dot matrix looking squares. People with QR readers can read that. It gives them a link directly to a website, a web page. That can be one of your audio recordings. Additionally, maybe you want to share with us some extra photos, extra text for those who do want to read a little bit more. Well, you can do that right here. And Microsoft Word has done it for you. How to make a web page. Just type into a document whatever you want. Include some photos that are very interesting or further your message. And again, those are ready to upload. It even does all the stuff you need to do to pictures, which I won't go into, to make them small and easy to use on a mobile phone. So right there you have it. You can make a very simple audio tour or an extra content tour, as I will call it, yourself. But again, yeah, I think what you really want is a game. So that leads us to using technology. When do you use it? How do you use it? You need to consider, the pre and post visit versus while you're at the museum. There are so many options available these days for people to handle the post visit, the pre-visit, if done right, frequently what it's used as is just a way to see the museum from outside the museum. I've even heard of a museum that had a cell phone tour, and they found that school groups were using it, but the school groups were not visiting their museum. So, I think you need to focus on getting people into your museum and also what they do while they're at the museum. And consider this, it should be easy to change. Not all technology choices are, but find a platform and you won't need to program, you won't need to do any of that nitty-gritty technology stuff. You'll just get to type in what you want people to know, what you want people to find. And secondly, those are easy to change. How easy is it to change all your exhibits, or one section of your exhibits? How much time and work goes into that? Quite a bit. I think you're just layering on just a little bit more to actually deliver the game that goes along with it. And lastly, use technology for good. So what got me into this was how often I saw other, the siblings of players on our soccer team, using mobile devices. Within minutes of showing up at a practice, they want that iPhone out of mom or dad's pocket, or they've already brought their own iPad from their house. It's amazing how many of them have them these days. But let's not use it as just an entertainment device. Let's use it as an interactive that they use at your museum. So again, I thank everyone for joining us today, and I have purposely been ignoring the all the comments, but I think Heather has been compiling questions.
Actually, we were more talking about audio. Sorry, Tim. But if you guys do have any questions, this is the time to ask them, and Tim will be able to answer them. I know a lot of them were actually submitted prior to the lunch, so Tim was able to incorporate those into his presentation. So I think he actually covered quite a few of the questions people had prior to us. But if you guys do have any questions, please ask them now in the chat feature over there. And you are getting lots of thank yous for your presentation.
Right. Let me see. What I can do is I can dig out the list of questions I received in advance.
Okay, I do have one. Any resources on creating a simple scavenger hunt app?
So again, this is a joint effort. What do you have to bring to the table? You have the fantastic creativity, the artifacts, what have you. It's best to pair with someone providing a platform, honestly, and it may not be as expensive as you think, and it's not all about the technology. So I would say that it requires sort of an assessment of what you have there. Just a discussion with someone who has applied technology, and how would that really fit your location. Yeah, I think you'll find that the amount of time spent building a platform really it is expensive, and it requires some thought as to how people are going to use it, and we've had some of these very similar conversations in the past. Let's see. Do we have other questions?
Yep. I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this, or maybe other people on the chat would be able to answer this. Would you foresee or have you experienced any difficulties with older visitors who may feel affronted by seeing phones used in art galleries?
Well, I think it depends upon the setting. Simply putting up a sign isn't going to establish everything about how people use the app. On the way in the door, that's when you really need to discuss with them, with visitors, what the intended purpose is. I don't think you'll find many places where everyone's just running around rampant with mobile devices. It doesn't sound like a museum game, really. So the other thing is, are there guided tours? A game could be used to augment a guided tour, where older participants may want to pay attention to the talk, and the younger participants actually need something to look for along the way. They need a visual stimulus. Let's see.
And then Kathleen asked about if you had suggestions about incentives, because you mentioned that incentives are important.
Oh, right, certainly. So, along the way at visiting many museums, which is what I like to do, there are, a myriad of very inexpensive giveaways that you give to kids. The Junior Ranger program at National Parks is, a perfect example, but you don't even need to be as fancy as a patch or badge. Frequently, the awareness bands, any sort of thing like that you give away, and so long as it's not just the pencil, do present a prize. People hang on to them. I love keychains, actually. You see kids wearing keychains on their backpacks all the time. Little things like that can be given away. That is a prize. That's a reward. You can also reward people for participation. You give them a discount in your gift shop. Isn't that a reward for you as well? Those are just a couple ideas. But if you just want to throw something together very quickly, let's go back to that photo scavenger hunt. Let's have them think about, what would be the best shot? What's the best connection? They'll take those shots, and you're going to want to put them on your Facebook page. See, do we have other questions?
That looks like it's it, but we are hitting almost our hour mark. So I just want to say thank you, Tim, so much for giving your presentation today, and thank you, everybody, for participating. And make sure you join us next in October for crap I wish they taught me in grad school. Not actually what it is, but we all have that problem. And that will be with the director of the Abbey Museum on October 29th. And I also want to say Tim will be at our conference. If you guys have any follow-up questions or want to talk to him in person, his phone number and email address is on the screen right now. And I did mention earlier, you guys probably didn't hear me though, that this session has been recorded and Tim's PowerPoint presentation will be available on the NEMA website probably in the next day or two. Tim, do you have any final words you would like to say? No, just a big thank you to all of you who participated in the survey, made it a bit more interactive, and for the opportunity. And for those of you who I've met before, thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to putting some faces with some names in November. So thank you very much. All right, thanks, and I will see you guys all in November. All right, bye. All right, take care.